All right, so in this video, I'm going to share some of the things that have worked for me through the years as I've learned how to become better at practicing guitar. Believe it or not, that did not come natural for me, and it took me many, many years to realize there's this huge benefit to defining a practice routine, being very specific about my intent, and working towards a goal. And that's what I'm going to try and share and help you with in this video. And by the end of this, I'm hoping that you have a customized plan, or at least the knowledge for how to do it, to create your own customized plan to help you meet your goals. I thought this would be the perfect video to do as we're going into the new year. At least, as I'm shooting this video, that's the case. Now, some of you will be watching this, totally different time frame. That's fine. All of this material would apply to you as well. You're obviously watching the video because you're interested in learning how to set up a practice routine. So the first thing that I'll say is, when you're learning how to play guitar, it's a very isolating thing. It's frustrating. It's like learning how to speak a new language, but you don't have people to share it with a lot of the time. That's most of us we're working in silos like that. And so you don't really know what to do next. And that's what you're looking for is like, okay, what should I be working on this week? What should I do next week? You're looking for some kind of strategy, a game plan. And when you take private lessons, that's what you're actually paying somebody for and it's pretty expensive to do that. But what if I told you could do most of that yourself? You could set up your own game plan if you just follow some of these techniques we're going to talk about. So the first thing is you have to define a goal. And that one's kind of obvious, and it's like, well, yeah, of course. But there's goals and then there's goals. There's these big lofty things that are almost too big to even mention, like I want to be better at guitar. Well, that's not really a goal. A goal is something that's very specific, something that you can articulate. It's measurable. There's benchmarks. There's specific attributes that are connected to a goal. And so if I said, for example, I want to play like Stevie Ray Vaughan, that's my goal. That's a huge goal. It is more specific than saying I want to be better at guitar, but it's still massive. Even Stevie Ray himself, it took him most of his life to achieve that goal, or a big chunk of it. And so what was more of a realistic way to look at something like that would be, what are some of the objectives inside of that goal? So for the Stevie Ray Vaughan example, it would be learning to play the pentatonic scale, for example, the minor pentatonic scale and major pentatonic scale, learning how to play vibrato the way he does. Those are specific, measurable, achievable goals. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. It's really more like these little mini goals. I guess in the instructional design world, that would be considered objectives. So I've been told. But I'm thinking of these, just to explain it in here as these goals, achievable goals. So, and you need to first think about your goal. So be thinking about that as you're watching this video, and you don't have to have all of that stuff figured out yet, but just be kind of thinking about it. And that goal, once you kind of figure out one of the goals that you want to do, and by the way, you can have multiple. It's not like you just have one. You can have multiple goals. Write it down. This is a big, important step here, is to take it from your head and put it on paper. And I think it's more important to write it down on paper than it is to type it. There's something about having something tangible in your hand that makes it more real to me than digital sitting in a cloud somewhere. That's just my own personal thought. But write the goal down. Make sure it's achievable. It's attainable. And the next thing you have to think about is it measurable? Your goal needs to be something that you can measure. It can't just be, I want to sound better. It has to be something like, I want to play faster. I want to be able to play at this tempo. And so I'm going to use that as an example because that was my goal last year. I wanted to be a faster player. I've never been very fast at guitar. I've always been kind of, I've been able to get the job done, but I haven't been good at alternate picking, and at least the way I wanted to. So I wanted to be able to play up to 130 beats a minute, like 16th notes, and be able to do that pretty accurately. And when I started off, I was pretty slow. It was like more like 100 beats a minute, to be candid, if I was trying to do something accurate. So that's a very measurable goal. I could set a tempo and I could do that. And I realized that's not the case for a lot of you. Some of you are saying, I want to learn how to jam with my friends. That one is measurable too, though. The measurement would be, can you jam with your friends? Can you do what you wanted to do? If you can't, then you haven't met your goal. So just remember that and write that down. As you're writing your goal down, write down how you would measure this goal. And we'll get to time frames and all that in just a minute. But that's the first thing. Define your goal, make it achievable, make it something doable, and then make it measurable. And then the next thing is to set some kind of a benchmark. You have to have some way of measuring this. And so I think of this in the weight loss analogy. If we're talking about losing weight as a goal, this would be like taking a picture of yourself with your fat pants on, that before shot. You need to be able to capture where you are now. So get out your smartphone, and you can use the voice recorder on it or a video or whatever, but take a little video or an audio recording of yourself playing what you're trying to do now. It's not going to sound very good, but that's okay. This is for you. Nobody else has to hear it. You're not going to share it with anybody. But you want to capture when you're bad. That's really important, because what you'll do in the future is you'll look back and you'll hear yourself when you were bad, and you'll realize you're a little bit better, and that's what you need. That's that motivation you need to propel you forward. I can't tell you how huge this step has been for me. I'm learning to play fiddle right now, and some of you know that. I've mentioned that in emails, and it's a painful process. To me, it's an excruciatingly painful instrument because it's so awkward. But I started recording myself at first, like the first week, and I listen to myself, I listen back, and I can tell improvement. And when I hear that, I want to practice twice as hard, because now I can notice a difference. It's like in the weight loss analogy, it's like seeing pounds come off when you step on the scale. You have to have some benchmark. Okay, so all of that we're talking about is all about defining some kind of a goal, measurement, benchmark, that kind of stuff. That's step one. The next thing is, how do you go about practicing something? What does that part of it look like? That's really probably the most important. And this kind of comes down to two sections. There's two ways that you're going to practice something. It's going to fall into one of these two camps. One is maintenance mode, and one is discovery mode. That's what I'm calling them anyway. Maintenance mode is when you just play the things you already know how to do. And this is where most of us go when it comes to practicing, because it's the most comfortable, it's the most fun, it's the most immediately rewarding. You pick up your guitar and you just buzz through a song you already know, you play through a scale you already know, and you could spend an hour or 2 hours doing that and go, okay, cool, I practiced guitar. Well, that is a form of practice, and I'm not discrediting that. That's actually a very important part, because you're getting better at what you're working on, your coordination is improving and all of that. But you're not growing per se when you do that. So this discovery mode is huge for those of you that are learning how to improvise, learning to speak the language and all of that. You need to be learning new things, new licks, new scales, new information needs to be coming in. And it's painful. The discovery part is horrible. I hate that part of it, because you don't know what you're doing. It's awkward. It doesn't sound good. It's not fun. It's work. But it's important to discover something new so that you can grow. And then at some point, that discovery becomes part of your maintenance. So it's sort of like this assembly line that you're creating. You're taking new information, it's coming in, and then it's going into that maintenance mode over time. So back to the improvising example. Most of you are learning how to improvise. That's why you watch the videos at Active Melody. And I have lots and lots of them. That's pretty much what I focus on, is just improvising. It's really more that than anything. And so as you're improvising, it's important to learn new things. Learn about triads, learn about the arpeggios, learn how to use an arpeggio along with a triad and a pentatonic scale or whatever. It's taking all of those pieces, putting them together that give you your unique sound and help you to be able to improvise and meet your goals. Now, I do have a whole list of lessons. I should mention that. I meant to mention this at the beginning, that are in the description, that are sort of those essential must-know type lessons. I've been meaning to put this together for years, and I've finally done it. I've got 500 and something, almost 500 lessons now at Active Melody, and many more probably by the time you were watching this video. I obviously haven't gone through everything, but I went through and picked some of the big ones, and I broke it down into 8 categories. So I wanted to just mention that. So for those of you that are wanting to get better at improvising, but you're not sure kind of where to start, look at those. Those are a good roadmap to scales, the cage system, triads, all of these things I talk about over and over again, the things that at least I know, and when it comes to improvising, those are all kind of spelled out in the description below. So we've talked about maintenance mode and we've talked about discovery mode. So which of these should I be using when I practice, or what percentage of maintenance versus discovery should I be using? That depends on what your goal is. If your goal is a skill that you're trying to learn, like I want to learn how to accurately bend strings, very little to do with discovery. That's muscle memory. That's just going through that maintenance mode, doing it over and over and over again. So you're going to have to spend a bigger portion of your time doing that. When I was learning how to play fast, there wasn't a whole lot of discovery in that. And at the very beginning I had to figure out what to practice. But once I figured that out, then it's just going through the drills. So most of that was this maintenance mode and going through the drill. So your techniques, I'm going to say, is more maintenance. But any of the learning how to improvise, learning how to play chord changes, learning how to use certain scales or modes or any of that kind of stuff, that's going to be a lot more discovery. Or at least it's going to be half and half. You're going to spend a big chunk of your time discovering new input and then practicing how to use that input. And the one thing that's helped me more than anything is to take a jam track or even play along with a song. If I'm learning how to play Mixolydian scale, for example, I take that scale and that's all I work on for a long time. I see how it works over this jam track or that jam track, and I try and put it in all kinds of different contexts so that it becomes more familiar to me over time. So you just have to kind of adjust the percentage of maintenance mode versus discovery mode depending on what your goal is. And for those of you that are in more of that improvising mode and a lot of discovery, you need to be writing those down, the new things that you discover, and creating some little journal so that you can refer back to that. Maybe it's even just a audio recording so you don't write anything down. However is easiest for you to remember this stuff. But you want to be able to refer back, because here's the truth. And I don't care who you are or where you are as a player, most of this stuff that you learn, these new licks, this new input, you're going to forget it. That's just the truth. But that should make you feel good to hear that, because you're not alone. I felt alone when I realized that most of this stuff, I'll spend all this time learning a new lick or part of a solo or something, and I'll totally forget it in a week or two. But the truth is, a chunk of it sticks. Just a little piece of it sticks. Maybe it's like a little part of that solo or a little phrase or a little idea from it, but some of it sticks. You don't know what part's going to stick, but that all kind of forms into some kind of a gel that becomes you and becomes part of your voice when you play. So you're just going to have to remember that. That's why it's important to journal that stuff so that you can go back. If you want to go back into maintenance mode with all the new things that you've done, you can do that. You have a list of that stuff. All right, so how much time should you be spending practicing, or how frequently should you be practicing? I personally think it's something you should do every day, every single day, just like brushing your teeth or taking your vitamins or whatever your daily routine is. Now, I realize that some of you are working, you've got families, you've got a lot of obligations. I totally get that. But try to find 10 minutes in your day, at a minimum of 10 minutes. First thing in the morning maybe, or right before you go to bed. Just find that 10 minutes where you can kind of go through a little bit of discovery, a little bit of maintenance mode. Depends on what your goal is, but try and find that time every day if you can. If you can't do it 7 days a week, try for 6 days a week. But the reason I say that is there's a huge difference in practicing daily versus like only on the weekend. If you spend a couple hours on a Saturday, that's not nearly as meaningful as like 10 or 15 minutes a day, like 6 or 7 days a week. Because when you do that, it becomes part of you. It's just part of who you are. As you're learning to speak this language, you're speaking it every day and you're getting better with it. When you do it once a week, you're forgetting a lot of things. You're spending half your time trying to remember stuff. It's just not as efficient. So I know some of you are retired. You've got a lot more time on your hands. This won't be a problem for you. Just be sure to try and carve out some time for maintenance and discovery every day if you can. The next point I want to make, and this was a big one for me, is to go ahead and define what it is you're working on at the beginning of the week. So go ahead and kind of create a little roadmap for what you're going to be doing every day. It may be the same thing every day, and that's fine, but you don't want to walk into practice time and go, I don't really know what I'm working on yet. You need to have a very clear plan, some kind of a game plan that you've predefined. It makes things go so much easier. So one of your days can be nothing but planning, and that's totally fine. That's kind of like how it works. So just take one of your days, plan it all out, what you're going to be doing. You can plan out for the month. You could plan out for the next 2 or 3 days. But don't start your practice without knowing what it is that you're to be working on. All right, so scroll down and leave a comment on what your goals are. I think this will be helpful for all of us to see what each other's goals are. This will help me for sure in creating future content so I can create it more customized for what it is that you're looking for. And if you like this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you haven't, you can click the subscribe button, click the alert bell, and be notified as I put out new videos, which I do all the time. Oh, and the last thing is make sure you check out all of those suggested lessons. Those are really in the description description below. Those are put there as a ways to kind of get you started. If you're not really sure where to begin or what you should be working on, these are some of the essential topics that I'm always talking about. And once you have a good understanding of those, all the rest of this becomes a lot easier. All right, we'll see you in the next video.